The station had no windows in the usual sense, only wide curved panels that showed processed starlight translated into calm colors. Elias Wren liked it that way. Real stars distracted him. These ones were quiet, predictable, and easy on tired eyes. He was alone in the control ring, as usual. The interspecies relay station floated in a region of space no one claimed. It had been built long before humanity learned how to leave its own solar system, and no one alive truly knew who made it. Dozens of species used it now, passing messages, data, and trade signals through systems that still worked without anyone fully understanding why. Humans had been given stewardship of the station not because they were powerful, but because they were stubborn. When something broke, humans tried again, and again, and again. Eventually, something usually worked. Elias was a systems engineer, not a diplomat or soldier. He wore a simple gray work suit, patched at the elbow, and kept his dark hair cut short because long hair got in the way when leaning into access panels. His job was boring, which suited him perfectly. He was reviewing a routine diagnostic when the station changed. Not alarms. Not lights, just a pause. The hum beneath his feet dipped as if the station itself had taken a breath and forgotten how to let it out. Elias frowned and ran the scan again. Everything came back green. Then the door opened. It should not have. No alert had sounded. No access request appeared. The door simply slid aside as if it had always been meant to do so. She stepped in. She looked human at first glance. That was the most unsettling part. Humanoid shape, average height, bare feet touching the floor without sound. Her skin held a pale, even tone that reflected the soft light of the control ring. Her hair was long and dark, hanging loose down her back. She did not speak. Elias stood slowly. His hand hovered near the console, not to trigger an alarm, those never helped, but to steady himself. Visitors did not come to the control ring, ever. "Can I help you?" he asked. She looked at him then. Her eyes were deep and calm, without visible whites, like polished stone. She studied him the way one might study a tool left behind by an earlier civilization. She still said nothing. Instead, she began to remove what she was wearing. Elias froze, not out of fear but confusion. Her outer layer detached smoothly, not pulled or unfastened but released, dissolving into faint light before vanishing. Beneath it was another layer, darker and more complex, marked with faint geometric patterns that shifted as she moved. That layer came away as well, folding in on itself and disappearing. There was nothing suggestive in the act. No hurry, no display. It felt like watching someone remove a spacesuit after a long journey. Elias realized distantly that his heart was racing. "Listen," he said carefully, "this area is restricted. If you're lost, I can call." Another layer came away. What remained was not skin as humans understood it. It was a surface that looked solid and soft at the same time, threaded with slow-moving light beneath. Symbols flickered across her form, then faded, as if no longer needed. The station systems began to respond. Data scrolled across Elias' console without his input. Old protocols activated, ones marked unreadable in human records. Energy readings spiked, then stabilized into patterns he had never seen. She was not undressing. She was simplifying. Elias swallowed and forced himself to breathe. Panic would solve nothing. It never did. "What are you?" he asked. She stepped forward. Each movement was precise, balanced, as if gravity itself adjusted to her presence. She stopped close enough that Elias could feel a change in the air, a pressure like standing near a powerful engine. Still, she did not touch him. Then she looked past him, at his station. At the interface he had customized over years of work, filled with notes, shortcuts, and small human inefficiencies that made sense only to him. She climbed, not onto him but onto the command structure itself. Her foot touched the base of the console, and the surface reshaped to support her. She stepped higher, onto the raised platform where only authorized personnel could stand. Systems that rejected entire fleets accepted her without hesitation. She settled above him, not in dominance but in position. The main display shifted. Elia's access level dropped, not removed, just reordered. He stared at the console, fingers trembling. He could still act, still observe, still intervene if needed. But something else now sat at the top of the stack. She had climbed over everything humanity had layered onto the station and rested there, quietly. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then information flowed, not into Elia's mind but across the screens. Star maps unfolded that showed regions far beyond known space. Civilizations rose and fell in compressed data streams. Equations resolved problems humanity had not yet realized it was asking. Elias felt small, not insignificant, just young. The entity turned her head slightly, finally acknowledging him again. "You are alone," she said. Her voice was calm, even, and perfectly clear. It did not echo. It did not vibrate the air. It simply existed as if the station itself had decided to speak. "Yes," Elias replied, surprised at how steady he sounded. "Most of the time." "You maintain this place," she said. "I try," he answered. "It mostly maintains itself, I just help." She watched him closely now, not like before. This was different, focused. "Others demanded control," she said. "They brought guards, they brought weapons, they brought certainty." Elias shrugged slightly. "Certainty breaks things." A pause, that he realized was the first real reaction she had shown. "You did not attempt to stop me," she said. "I don't understand you well enough to stop you," Elias replied. "Seems rude to interfere when I don't know the rules." The station hummed steadily beneath them, untroubled. She looked at her own form, then back at him. "I removed constraints," she said. "Layers designed to reassure, to intimidate, to define hierarchy." "Did it work?" Elias asked. "For others," she said, "yes. And for me?" "You are still standing," she observed. "That's kind of my thing," Elias said before he could stop himself. Another pause. Longer this time. Then something unexpected happened. The pressure eased. Systems slowly shifted, not back to normal but into a shared state. Elia's access level rose slightly, not to the top, but closer. "I am not here to take," she said. "I am here to see." "See what?" Elias asked. "What happens," she replied, "when something climbs above you and you do not push it away?" Elias considered that. He looked at the console, at the endless data still unfolding, at the being who could likely rewrite everything with a thought. Then he sat down, not in surrender, not in defeat, just because standing for too long made his knees hurt. "If you're going to watch," he said, "you might as well be comfortable. This could take a while." For the first time, she smiled. And far beyond the relay station, in regions of space where ancient watchers still listened, something shifted its attention. Humanity had been noticed, not because it shouted, but because it did not flinch. The station did not return to normal after that moment. It did not sound alarms or lock down systems, but it behaved differently, like a machine that had realized it was being observed by someone who truly understood it. Elias noticed it first in the small things. Data requests responded faster. Old error logs stopped repeating themselves. Systems that usually resisted human input now accepted his commands with less friction, as if they trusted his hands more than before. She remained. She did not move much. She stayed above the command platform, sometimes standing, sometimes seated in a way that did not quite match human posture. She watched screens that shifted to her attention without touch or gesture. When she looked away, they returned to Elias. She did not speak unless there was a reason. That unsettled Elias more than threats ever could. Hours passed, or maybe less. Time felt strange when nothing demanded urgency. Elias worked. That more than anything seemed to interest her. He ran maintenance checks, annotated strange behaviors in the system, muttered to himself when old problems refused to stay solved. He drank lukewarm nutrient coffee and grimaced at the taste. He scratched notes on a digital pad that was technically obsolete but familiar. At one point, he realized she was watching his hands. "You're tracking motor function?" he asked without looking up. "Yes," she replied. "Why?" "You adapt without optimizing," she said. "Your movements are inefficient." "Yeah," Elias said. "So is most of my life." She tilted her head slightly. Why accept inefficiency? He thought about that while rerouting a stubborn power loop. Because perfect systems break when reality disagrees, he said. Imperfect ones bend. She was quiet after that. Later, she stepped down from the platform. Elias felt it before he saw it. The subtle shift in pressure. The way the station recalculated itself around her presence. She moved closer, standing beside him now, close enough that he could see fine patterns moving beneath her surface. They were not random. They changed when he spoke. "You're reading language structures," he said. "Yes, through light, through correlation." He nodded as if that made sense. "You're not from anywhere nearby, are you?" "No," she answered. "Distance is not relevant." That made him pause. "Time then?" She looked at him, and for the first time there was something like hesitation. "Time is negotiable." Elias laughed quietly. "Figures." He turned his chair slightly to face her. "You said others demanded control. Who are others?" "Civilizations," she replied. "Some old, some young, all certain. And humans?" "You did not demand," she said. "You adjusted." That sounded like a compliment. Elias decided to accept it as one. "What happens now?" he asked. "I observe," she said. "I integrate context." "Context of what?" "Of humanity." That made his chest tighten. "That's a lot to judge from one tired engineer." "You are not the subject," she said. "You are the sample." Elias grimaced. "We're all going to fail your test because of me, aren't we?" "There is no test," she replied. Then, after a pause, "There is only response." Something in the station shifted again. A new signal appeared on the edge of known detection range. Elias noticed it because it should not have been visible. The relay station did not normally scan that far on its own. "Are you doing that?" he asked. "Yes." "Should I be worried?" "That depends," she said, "on how others respond." The signal multiplied, not ships, not weapons, observers, listening constructs. Long-range awareness systems built by species that no longer trusted distance to keep secrets. "They've noticed you," Elias said. "They noticed the change," she corrected. "I am always present." "That's not comforting." "It is not meant to be." Messages began arriving. Not through standard channels, but through deeper layers of the station's architecture. Requests, demands, warnings phrased as concern. Elias skimmed them, jaw tightening. "They're asking who authorized this," he said. "They're asking if the station has been compromised." "And you?" she asked. "I'm trying to decide how honest to be." She studied him again. "Why hesitate?" "Because if I say I don't know what you are, they'll panic," Elias said. "And if I say I do know, they'll assume I'm lying." "That is illogical." "It's politics," he replied. "Different rules." She considered that. "Then choose the response that minimizes damage." Elias exhaled slowly and began typing. He did not describe her. He described himself. He reported an anomaly. He explained system behavior changes without assigning cause. He stated that no hostile action had occurred and that station integrity remained intact. He requested time. He expected outrage. What he received was silence. The observers withdrew slightly, not retreating but repositioning, watching from farther away. "They're scared," Elias said quietly. "Yes," she replied, "they should be." That made him look at her sharply. "Of them or of us?" "Of uncertainty," she said. "You tolerate it, they do not." The station lights dimmed briefly as power redistributed. Elias watched the flow graph stabilize again. "You could take control," he said, "if you wanted." "Yes, but you won't." "No." "Why?" She looked at him for a long moment. "Because control reveals nothing. Choice does." Elias leaned back in his chair. "You're really committed to this observation thing." "I have waited a long time," she said, "for a response that was not fear or conquest. And we're it." "You might be." That was not reassuring. Days passed, or maybe cycles. Elias slept in short intervals, always aware of her presence but never disturbed by it. She did not watch him sleep. He noticed that, appreciated it. They talked more, not small talk, questions, answers. She asked about human governance, and Elias explained that no one was really in charge, not in the way other species seemed to expect. He explained disagreement, slow progress, mistakes repeated across generations. She asked why humans continued to explore when their own systems were unstable. Because we don't believe stability is permanent, Elias said, so we keep moving. She processed that for a long time. The observers returned, this time with voices. A coalition request came through, formal and carefully worded. They wanted access, inspection, assurance. They're asking to board, Elias said. She looked at him. What do you recommend? He blinked. You're asking me. Yes. Well, he said slowly, if you refuse, they'll assume the worst. If you agree fully, they'll try to contain you. And you? I'd give them limited access, Elias said. On our terms, transparency without surrender, she considered. That is a risk. Everything is, he replied. After a moment, she nodded. The station adjusted docking permissions. Corridors reshaped to guide visitors away from critical systems. Elias felt a strange sense of pride. When the first delegation arrived, they were cautious, formal, surrounded by sensors and protocols. They saw Elias, they did not see her. She stood beside him, visible only to those the station allowed. Why hide? Elias whispered. I am not hiding, she replied. I am allowing. The delegates spoke to Elias. They questioned him, tested his responses. Scanned the station endlessly. They found nothing hostile. They left unsettled. Afterward, the observers withdrew farther than before. She climbed above everything, Elias realized quietly, and they still don't see her. They see outcomes, she said, not causes. He looked at her. So what happens when they finally do? She met his gaze. That, she said, depends on whether humanity stands up or reaches out. Elias rubbed his tired eyes and looked back at the glowing station, at the quiet stars beyond processed light. Guess we'll find out, he said. And somewhere beyond the edges of known space, ancient systems recalculated their expectations. The waiting was almost over. The relay station changed again, but this time it was not subtle. Elias noticed it when he woke from a shallow sleep cycle and found the air feeling heavier, as if meaning itself had weight. The lights were steady, the system stable, yet something pressed at the edges of awareness. The station was no longer just operating. It was anticipating. She stood near the central display, her form brighter than before. The flowing patterns beneath her surface moved faster now, rearranging themselves into structures Elias almost understood before they slipped away again. You are processing faster, Elias said, rubbing his eyes. Yes, she replied, the observation phase is nearing completion. That sounds final, he said. I don't like final. Neither do humans, she said. That is noted. External signals increased. Not messages this time, but passive scans. Long, careful sweeps across the station, probing without touching. The watching civilizations were no longer just curious. They were coordinating. They're talking to each other, Elias said, eyes on the data, sharing conclusions. And what are those conclusions? She asked. That something here doesn't fit their models, he replied, which usually means panic is next. She stepped closer and the station adjusted instantly to give her space. Do humans panic? All the time, Elias said. We just keep moving while we do it. That seemed to interest her. The first disruption came without warning. A distant node in the relay network went dark, not destroyed, not shut down, simply silent. Its signal collapsed into itself like a thought abandoned mid-sentence. Elias felt a chill. That node was stable, ancient, nothing fails out there. It was not a failure, she said, it was a withdrawal. By who? She looked at him. By those who fear implication. More nodes flickered, some returned, some did not. The network was fragmenting as civilizations pulled back, isolating themselves, hoping distance would restore certainty. They're cutting themselves off, Elias said. That's dangerous. The relay keeps half the galaxy talking. Yes, she agreed. And silence has consequences. A high-priority message forced its way through. Elias opened it, jaw tightening as he read. They're demanding answers now, he said. They're invoking emergency accords, she nodded. They have concluded observation has failed. Failed how? They have not understood you, she said, so they assume threat. Elias leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Of course they do. The message escalated while he watched. Requests became ultimatums, carefully phrased but unmistakable. If the anomaly was not explained, neutral forces would intervene to secure the relay. That's a polite way of saying they'll take it, Elias said. Yes. And you? I will remain, she said simply. Elias exhaled. Figures. He stood and paced, hands running through his hair. If they come here in force, even without violence, it'll break everything. The relay, the trust, may be worse. Agreed. So what's your plan? He asked. She watched him closely. I am considering a variable I did not expect. That's never good news, Elias said. You, she finished. He stopped pacing. Me. You are a point of contact, she said. A limiter, a translator, a demonstration. Of what? That power does not require dominance, she replied. That presence does not require control. Elias stared at her. You want me to talk to them? Yes. That's insane. Possibly, she said, but it aligns with human behavior. He laughed, sharp and tired. You know, most species don't put their weakest member in front of a crisis. You do, she said, frequently. Because we don't always know who the strongest is, he replied. She seemed to consider that deeply. The station chimed softly. A new connection request appeared, broader than any before. Not a single civilization, but a collective interface. A council of watchers speaking together. They're ready, Elias said. Yes, he swallowed. If I do this wrong, you will, she said gently, and that will be informative. That's not comforting. It is not meant to be. Elias took his seat at the console. The interface reshaped itself, simplifying, removing layers of complexity until only essential functions remained. He noticed she had done that, made it easier for him. Thank you, he said quietly. She inclined her head. The connection opened. The display filled with abstract representations of presence. No faces, no voices, just structured signals translated into meaning. They spoke together. You are in violation of neutrality. You harbor an unclassified influence. You risk destabilization of shared systems. Elias took a breath. I'm Elias Wren, he said, human systems engineer, caretaker of this relay. I don't harbor anything. I work here. The response was immediate. Your authority is insufficient. You cannot assess what you do not understand. Agreed, Elias said. Neither can you. A ripple passed through the signals. Disapproval, surprise, you are compromised. No, Elias replied. I'm curious. Curiosity is a weakness. Not for us, he said. It's how we survive. They pressed harder. Identify the anomaly. Explain its intent. Cede control if necessary. Elias glanced at her. She stood behind him, silent, letting him choose. He turned back to the council. I can't explain her, he said, because she isn't doing what you expect. Then explain what she is doing. She's watching, Elias said. She climbed higher than any of you ever have, and then she stopped. Silence. That is illogical. So are humans, he replied. Yet here we are. They demanded proof, data, access, guarantees. Elias shook his head. You've had access. You've scanned everything you can. You just don't like the results. Which are? That nothing bad is happening, he said, and that scares you more than a threat. The council's signals fluctuated. They were debating internally, faster than Elias could follow. You risk everything by allowing this. Yes, Elias said, we do that a lot. Why? He paused. This one mattered. Because if we only ever act when we're certain, he said, we never learn who we could become. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one presence pushed forward, stronger than the rest. If this influence acts, she won't, Elias said. How can you be sure? I'm not, he replied. I'm choosing to trust. That caused an uproar. Signals spiked and clashed. Trust is not a strategy. It is for us, Elias said, and it's why we're still here. The connection dimmed. Not closed, just suspended. They're afraid, Elias said quietly. Yes, she replied, but they are listening. Outside the station, ships gathered at extreme distance. Not weapons, observers, prepared but hesitant. They're waiting to see if you'll stop me, she said. And if I do, then humanity will have answered. Elias felt the weight of that settle on him. No pressure. She stepped forward, close now, her presence warm instead of heavy. You could ask me to leave, she said. I would consider it. He looked up at her, surprised. You would, yes. Would that satisfy them, temporarily, and long-term? They would continue to fear what they do not understand. Elias shook his head. That never ends well. He faced the console again, opened a channel not to the council but to the open network. This is a human relay station, he said, broadcasting openly. We acknowledge something new is here. We acknowledge we don't fully understand it. We also acknowledge that nothing has been taken, broken, or threatened. Signals erupted as the message spread. We're not asking you to like it, Elias continued. We're asking you to observe what happens when no one tries to win. The silence that followed was deep. She placed a hand lightly on the console beside him. The station responded instantly, stabilizing, reinforcing itself, not in defense but in balance. You have chosen, she said. Yeah, Elias replied. Guess I have. Far across the network, some nodes returned. Slowly, carefully, others remained dark. Not everyone accepted uncertainty, but some did. And for the first time since the relay had been built, humanity was not just maintaining it. They were defining what it meant. She looked at Elias, something like respect in her still, deep eyes. The next phase begins, she said. Elias let out a tired breath and leaned back in his chair. Of course it does, he said. And the galaxy, watching closely now, waited to see whether humans would stand firm or reach out even further. The waiting did not end. It deepened. The relay station existed in a state Elias had never experienced before. Not emergency, not peace, something in between. A held breath shared by machines, people, and distant civilizations that no longer trusted their own expectations. Elias felt it every time he moved. The floor responded a fraction faster. The air adjusted before he noticed discomfort. The station was no longer just reacting. It was predicting him. She noticed that too. You are influencing the system, she said as Elias calibrated a sensor array that no longer needed calibration. I always was, Elias replied, just badly. No, she said, before you adapted to the station. Now it adapts to you. That doesn't sound healthy. For the station, she said, it is optimal. That's what worries me, Elias muttered. Outside the relay, the gathered ships did not advance. They held position at distances so extreme that light delay made real-time coordination impossible. That was intentional. No one wanted to be first. No one wanted responsibility. Messages still arrived, but fewer now, shorter, less demanding. The council had not withdrawn its concern, but it had paused escalation. They were watching to see if restraint would fail. It had not. Yet. The change came from inside. Elias noticed it when the station rerouted a process without informing him. Not a critical one, but not trivial either. A resource allocation shift, optimized beyond human parameters. That was you, Elias said, not accusing, just stating. Yes, she replied, you didn't ask. No, she agreed. He turned slowly to face her. That's new, she met his gaze calmly. The system requested efficiency, and you gave it. Yes. Elias folded his arms. That's how this starts. Little improvements, small permissions. Then suddenly I'm obsolete. She studied him for a long moment. Do you fear irrelevance? He considered that. I fear not being part of the decision. That is different, she said. Exactly. The station hummed quietly, its ancient mechanisms adjusting to a balance they had never been designed to hold. "I can stop," she said. "That's not what I'm asking." "What are you asking?" Elias took a breath. "I'm asking you to tell me when you change things. Even if you don't need my permission." She paused, truly paused, the patterns beneath her surface slowed. "That introduces inefficiency," she said. "Welcome to being human," Elias replied. Another pause, then a nod. "Agreed," she said. The station logged the agreement. Not as a command, as a principle. Something shifted again, subtle but real. Elias felt it like a knot loosening in his chest. The observers noticed too. A new message arrived, not from the council, but from an individual node. A smaller civilization, one that rarely spoke unless necessary. "They are adjusting behavior around the anomaly," the message said. "We request clarification. Is this influence governing you?" Elias stared at the words. "No," he said aloud. "It's not." She stood beside him, silent. He typed carefully. "No one is governing us," he sent. "We are cooperating." The reply took longer than usual. "Cooperation implies parity. Do you believe parity exists?" Elias glanced at her again. She did not prompt him, did not interfere. "Yes," he typed. "Not in ability, in choice." The node went quiet. She turned to him. "You are redefining terms." "Someone has to," Elias said. "Otherwise we keep repeating the same mistakes." "Your species repeats mistakes often," she observed. "We get better at different ones," he replied. She seemed to accept that. Time passed differently now. Elias slept more deeply, as if the station itself guarded his rest. He dreamed of open spaces, of standing on the edge of something vast without falling. When he woke, she was there, always there, but no longer looming. She began to ask different questions, not about systems or governance, but about limits. "Why do humans refuse perfection?" she asked one cycle. "We don't," Elias said. "We just don't trust it." "Why?" "Because perfect things don't forgive," he replied. "They break when something unexpected happens. And humans expect the unexpected." "We cause it," Elias said dryly. She considered that for a long time. Then came the moment Elias had been dreading. The council returned, not as observers, as participants. The connection opened with none of the earlier caution. Their presence filled the interface, structured and intense. "Your actions have altered network behavior," they said. "Isolation has increased. Trust has degraded. Explain." Elias sat straighter. "Correlation isn't causation." "You introduced uncertainty." "Yes," Elias said, "but we didn't force anyone to react the way they did." "Your cooperation destabilizes balance." "Or reveals it," Elias countered. They pressed harder. "You permit an unknown influence to operate within shared infrastructure." "She doesn't operate," Elias said. "She observes. When she acts, she tells me." "This was new information. You have authority over her actions." Elias shook his head. "No." "Then you are subordinate." "No," he said again. "I'm responsible." The council reacted strongly to that. Responsibility without control is unacceptable. Elias leaned forward. "That's where we disagree." Silence followed, a heavy one. One presence stepped forward, more direct than the others. "If this influence decides to act beyond restraint, she won't," Elias said. "Your certainty is unjustified." "Then watch," he replied. "That's what she's doing. Watching." The presence turned, as if addressing something beyond Elias. "Is this true?" For the first time she spoke directly to them. "Yes." The effect was immediate. Signals destabilized. The council reeled, adjusting to her presence now that she allowed herself to be perceived. "You have remained hidden," they accused. "No," she replied. "You did not look." The council tried to assert dominance, to frame the exchange within familiar hierarchies. "State your purpose." She answered simply. To understand why humanity does not seize what it can. That unsettled them. "You could take control of the relay." "Yes." "You could enforce order." "Yes." "You do not." "Correct." "Why?" She looked at Elias before answering. "Because they would ask why." The council struggled with that. Elias felt a strange surge of pride. They turned back to him. Human, this association places you at risk. I know, Elias said. You may be held accountable for consequences beyond your species. Story of our lives, he replied. They deliberated. Long and intensely. Finally, a conditional statement emerged. We will not intervene, we will observe. If stability degrades, action will follow. Elias nodded. Fair enough. The connection closed. When it was over, Elias slumped back in his chair, exhausted. Well, he said. That could have gone worse. Yes, she agreed. He rubbed his face. You spoke to them. They asked. Still, he said, that was a line. I did not cross it, she replied. You invited me to stand beside you, not above you. Elias looked at her. You could have taken control in that moment. Yes, and you didn't. No. Why? She answered without hesitation. Because if I did, I would learn nothing new. That answer stayed with him. Later, when the station finally settled into a quieter rhythm, Elias stood by the processed starlight panels, watching colors shift gently. You know, he said, if this goes wrong, history is going to blame me. Humans accept blame readily, she said. We practice, he replied. She stood beside him, matching his posture now, imperfectly but intentionally. You have changed the parameters, she said. Good, Elias replied. They needed changing. The next response will not be passive, she warned. When is it ever? He said. She watched the distant stars through translated light. Some will test you, she said. Not with force, with pressure, with systems, with isolation. Elias sighed. That's familiar. You will be asked to choose again, she continued, between safety and openness. He nodded slowly. We usually do. And which will you choose? Elias smiled faintly. The one that scares us, he said. For the first time she looked uncertain. And for the first time, uncertainty did not belong only to humanity. The galaxy had seen restraint. Next it would see resolve. And whether that would hold was something no ancient watcher could predict. The pressure came quietly. Not through threats or ships moving closer, but through absence. Elias noticed it when 3 relay nodes failed to respond to routine synchronization pings. Not damaged, not offline, just unwilling. They acknowledged receipt, then declined to exchange data, citing internal policy changes. They're isolating, Elias said, staring at the map. Softly, carefully, she stood beside him, her presence steady. They are applying pressure without confrontation. Classic, Elias replied. Make it inconvenient enough that we back down on our own. Yes, she said. They are testing endurance. The relay station adapted as it always did. Routes rerouted. Bandwidth shifted. Traffic slowed but did not stop. Still, the pattern was clear. More nodes followed. Not enough to break the network, but enough to signal intent. They want us to choose safety, Elias said. To ask you to leave. She did not answer immediately. Outside the station, the distant observers remained. Not closer, not farther, watching to see which way humanity would bend. Elias leaned back in his chair, tired in a way that sleep did not fix. You said this would happen. Yes, she replied. They fear precedent. Yeah, Elias said. So do we usually. He stood and walked slowly along the control ring, hands clasped behind his back. If we give in now, they'll feel justified. If we don't, they'll escalate. Yes. Is there an option where everyone's happy? He asked. She looked at him. No, he smiled faintly. Didn't think so. Another message arrived, not from the council, from a trade consortium that depended heavily on relay throughput. Your cooperation with the anomaly is affecting economic stability. We request reassessment. Voluntary separation would restore confidence. Elias exhaled slowly. They're framing it as concern. It is concern, she said, for themselves. He typed a brief reply. Stability built on fear is fragile. We are not separating. The response was immediate. Then accept reduced participation. The node dimmed. They're pulling out, Elias said. Yes. More will follow. Yes. Elias stared at the network map as lines thinned and rerouted. The relay still functioned, but the galaxy was choosing distance again. This is the part where someone usually blinks, Elia said quietly. She turned to him. Will you? He shook his head. No, but I need to understand something. She waited. If this gets bad enough, Elia said, would you leave on your own? She considered the question carefully. If my presence caused harm I could not mitigate, yes. And is that happening? No, she said. The harm is self-inflicted. Elias nodded. That tracks. The station chimed softly. A priority alert, human-coded. Elias opened it and stiffened. What is it? She asked. Earth, he said. They're calling. The connection opened and familiar human voices filled the space. Tired, cautious, layered with politics Elias had not missed. Elias, a woman said, her image resolving. You've put us in a difficult position. Good to see you too, Elias replied. You understand the concern, she continued. Trade disruption, diplomatic strain. They're asking what humanity plans to do. Elias glanced at her, then back to the screen. We're doing what we always do, trying something new and hoping it doesn't break everything. There was a pause. You're hosting an unknown influence, the woman said, one that could reshape interstellar balance. Yes. And you're comfortable with that? No, Elias said honestly, but I'm comfortable with not panicking. She studied him. You're asking us to support this. I'm asking you not to undermine it, Elias replied. There's a difference. Another voice joined. If this goes wrong. It will, Elias interrupted gently. At least a little, everything does. The question is whether we learn anything useful. Silence followed, not hostile, thoughtful. Finally, the first woman spoke again. Humanity will not demand her removal. Elias felt a knot loosen in his chest. But, she continued, we will not force others to engage. We will endure the consequences. That's fair, Elias said. The connection closed. She turned to him. Your species accepts loss readily. We're good at surviving it, Elias replied. The isolation deepened over the next cycles. The relay network became thinner, quieter. Some species adapted quickly, finding alternate paths. Others struggled. Then something unexpected happened. A small node reconnected. Then another. Not the powerful ones, not the confident ones, the quiet civilizations, the ones that had always lived on the margins, used to uncertainty. They're coming back, Elias said softly. Yes, she replied. They observe resilience. A message arrived from one of them. We do not fear the unknown as much as being alone. If you remain open, we will too. Elias smiled. Looks like blinking goes both ways, he said. The council reconvened soon after, not in confrontation but in recalculation. You have altered network dynamics, they said. Despite isolation, collapse has not occurred. No, Elias agreed, it hasn't. Your cooperation has revealed fault lines we ignored. That happens, Elias said, usually during stress. They hesitated. The influence remains non-dominant. Yes, Elias said. Humanity remains non-expansionist. We're expansionist in curiosity, he replied, not control. The council processed that. A new designation emerged, carefully worded. Humanity will be recognized as a custodian species, not rulers, not enforcers. Stewards of shared systems during uncertainty. Elias stared at the screen. You're serious? Yes, he laughed, tired and surprised. You know we're going to mess that up sometimes. We are aware, the council replied. That is why the designation fits. The connection closed. Elias turned slowly to her. Did you know this would happen? No, she said, but I hoped. He rubbed his face. Congratulations. You made humans responsible for even more things. She looked at him with something close to warmth. Responsibility suits you. Over time, the relay stabilized into a new pattern, not as busy as before, not as quiet as it had nearly become, but more honest. Roots formed where trust existed. Connections grew where fear did not dominate. Elias returned to maintenance work, real work. The kind that involved faulty panels and stubborn systems. She watched less now, or perhaps differently. One cycle she approached him as he calibrated a sensor. My observation is complete, she said. Elias froze. "You're leaving." "No," she replied. "I am changing my state." "That's vague," he said. She smiled faintly. "I will no longer stand above." She stepped back and the station adjusted. Her access level shifted, aligning with Elias', not equal in capability but in position. "You're stepping down," Elias said. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I have learned what I came to learn," she said. "That humanity does not require oversight, only presence." Elias swallowed. "You could still leave."